Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. Well, today we have a number of different questions from all kinds of different trajectories. And I want to give it a wrapper. And I try to have a theme for each episode. And the theme for this episode is, what's wrong with me? And that might sound like, a silly question, but that is something that comes up for a lot of people that are attracted to human design, are attracted to astrology, are attracted to the human potential movement. They think there's something wrong with them. And this is mainly because it's through comparison with others. I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, why not? What's wrong with me? So I want to take you through a bit of a journey with these questions and also to show the way through it using human design, which I hope you'll find interesting. We're going to start off with the first question from HLN Marie, and this is her question. I have a very basic question for your show. What is the difference between having open centers with no gates defined versus open centers with one or more defined, i.e. the numbers have a circle around them? For example, I am a splenic projector with the spleen and G center filled in black through the 5710, but all centers have some gate filled in, quite a few in the throat, but I'm not that good at explaining thoughts. Thank you. Well, Marie, you're not good at explaining thoughts because there is nothing consistent in the throat. If you have a lot of gates in the throat, it's like a lot of gates in any open center, undefined center. These are aspects that you're attuned to. So certain ways that you would be speaking depending on what those gates are, despite the fact that they're not consistently in you. So for example, if you had the 62nd gate in your open throat, there would be a tendency to overuse details or to try emphatically to make your point, but no one's listening to you. It's that kind of thing. You've got to take the quality of whatever the gate is and imagine what it's like in the not self, in that center. So trying to explain things with an open throat, with no framework from which to explain, it's going to make you think like, I'm not good at that. But that's not what you're here to be good at. That's the point. The point is you're here to filter conversations and information that comes through according to those open gates in your own unique way, to be able to put different things together because you're not defined there. It only becomes a problem if you think you should be able to speak, in a defined way, in the same way about everything. And you can't, and you won't be able to. That is the joy of design. What you are fixed in is the 5710. So this is the most acute of all splenic awarenesses moving into behavior. It has a whole freshness about it. It's called the channel of perfected form. Look into that one. Find out what's always there in you and see that the rest of it is something that you're going to be picking up in different ways. You're going to be exploring. We're here to go to school in the centers that are open. And if there is a gate there or gates there, the themes are within that are going to be most appealing to you. So I hope that answered your question, and thank you for that. Our next question is from Maureen Lopez. This is their question. Great episode as always. I also have the 47-1 in an open Ajna, conscious sun. I understand now why I'm so open now. I wonder, when you are having completely no channels from the Ajna to the throat, what does it mean exactly? At school, I could never find a question to ask because I thought it was stupid. Is it not because of this? For your attention, I have my throat connected to my spleen with the 4816, my sacral the 2034, and my G the 2010, and indirectly to the root with the 3828, and the ego indirectly with the 4426. So here's another one. I get to school, you don't know what question to ask. And, I have the 47 in 3 and in 6. So in self-oppression and in futility, unconsciously framing the way my conceptual mind thinks. So it doesn't always think in a particular way, but it frames what it does take in conceptually through that gate. It's not asking questions. You and I don't ask questions. We don't think in terms of questions. I also had trouble at school, not because I didn't know what questions to ask so much as I didn't know what the question that they were asking, what it really meant, because I could see so many different ways of tackling the subject, and I often made mistakes in that way. What do you want to know? Ask me a straight question. If it's ambiguous, well, I got to choose. So, we can think there's something wrong with us, because some people are designed to ask questions and they're very good at it, and they ask great questions that open things up. We don't think in that way. There is nothing wrong. And, if you're thinking that there's stupidity involved on your part, then see what is in you that might cause that on top of that. So the 48th gate is a gate of inadequacy, the fear of inadequacy, the fear that I'm not good enough. And with the 26, you should be proud of yourself. It's like, this is a willful person. So yeah, it's tricky to get out of that one. But if you understand that where you're open, you're here to be open as you do, then there is no problem. And we are not here to compare ourselves with others, which is what often happens, especially in the normal Western educational system at the moment. And it puts a lot of people off track to live the life that they're actually designed to live. Okay, thank you for that question. The next question comes from one of our regulars, Coerce, and it's about control. Question: control freaks in human design. Perhaps a discussion. Do you agree that control is good and bad in human design? E.g., gate 21 from a defined will would be natural, otherwise excessive if it were in an undefined will center, but perhaps necessary if it was part of the Incarnation cross. What were your thoughts on control in HD? How else do you see it? The 8-1 needing to go its own way? 31 or 7 in detriment, not self? Someone with a cave environment? I guess we all wish to control the things we care about. So thanks for that, Coerce. Control, good or bad? Correct control is correct. Incorrect control is not good. So it's something to understand that the gate of control in a fixed will, as you say, they are designed to be in control, and it will depend upon the line and their experience and the rest of the chart to whether they're actually able to do that and succeed in that. And if it's in an open center, then yes, it will be excessive, over controlling, not realizing it, thinking they should be in control, they're entitled to be in control, and yet they don't have the willpower to be in control. Because after all, a will gate is a power gate. That will motor is really impressive. Never forget that. But human design is very much about the languaging. So you can use control in a general way and apply it to all kinds of things where it's actually not relevant. So for example, in my own case, I'm a cross of the laws. I have the 50th gate. So I have my own values. I am designed to live according to my values and what I hold to be true, what I hold to be the values to live by. Now, someone else looking in from the outside, might think that I'm controlling things because I hold to my values. It's the other way around. I've got values and I hold to them. I don't try to control people through my values. I just don't have anything to do with them if they're not in alignment. And that's important to me. That's part of what I am. Because I'm an authoritarian as a first line, because I have an alpha channel with the 7-line 1 in authoritarians, it means that I will be leading others also in a more authoritarian way. In other words, this way, this way, and try to line them to the direction that is correct for them. But yes, to point in the way, to point the way for them if I reckon it's going to be good for them. Now, people could say that's controlling, but it's not. It's part of my identity to do that, based on reasons, based on what I see is likely to happen because of the way that I see. So we can very easily put the control word on all kinds of things and all over the place in human design and the world, where it doesn't necessarily apply. So when you say at the end, I guess we all, want to control what we care about. Think about that. Some of the things that we care about can be honored, can be lived in ways that control would get in the way. And control can be a good thing in terms of creativity, in terms of design, to be able to control the tools of the trade in a skillful way. If you love gardens, to be able to have the wherewithal to control the way that the river flows or the pond flows or the plants blossom in color in different ways, whatever it may be, that is available for people that have the energy to love beauty. It doesn't mean they're a control freak. It just means that's the way they display their creativity in their environment. So that's what I would say. It's there are a number of different ways to look at it. But that's all I'm going to say for the time being. So nothing wrong. Those that have it, those that are here to be in control, if they know what they're doing, they'll do it well. So I hope that answered your question. And again, to let go of trying to control the things that we care about. We do our best. We'll all do our best. And we're not in control. We're not in control of the transits. There's a lot of things we're not in control of. And this is why decision making is so important, to be able to decide at any time frame what it is that is the correct decision for us. That's the best we can do, and it works. So no complaint there. The next question is from In the Cat Box Seat. Here's their question. I have a question for you. Is it possible to have an aversion to a line? I have no line 4s in my chart. I'm a 5-1 and also have a lot of 6. I seem to respond to line 4's attempts to convince with a sort of repulsion. It's like I can feel there's an attempt to manipulate, coerce, and I feel the ick and put up a wall. In astrology, I have a Scorpio moon rising, which is the strongest thing I can find that has an aversion to attempts to manipulate. I've asked this question in open forums and have taken some flack for it, along with people telling me I'm wrong. But I feel strongly there's something to this. Would love any insight. What's wrong with 4th lines? They're all icky. Well, it's a funny thing having nothing of one line, because you would think that means you'd have nothing to do with it. But I've also known people with a whole line missing in their chart, and they're actually living their life through that in some way. It's interesting. So is there an aversion to a line? It's more complicated than that. The line is what is lived on the surface. Behind that, there is the color. Behind that, that is the tone. There are so many different versions of the line. So in that sense, it's not the case that tying it to a line is going to be the way through. It's more likely to be something that you've encountered in the past, this life or a previous life, that you find icky. Not all 4th lines are trying to manipulate. They come on as friendly, usually, and they can bring you into their network, which can be lovely. But they're not always trying to manipulate you. They are looking for their own opportunity, yes, but who they are and who they're connected to can be an opportunity for you. There isn't direct manipulation from the line itself. For that, you would be looking at life forces and other things to consider, but not in the line 4. So bearing in mind, I haven't seen your chart. I don't know your chart, but you are a 5-1. There is a certain paranoia with the 5th line. I can only encourage you to let go of the sense of aversion and just see. In other words, when you meet someone that you like and you don't know their chart and you're getting on well, you know, and you've just met them, look after you've become friends and see if they're a fourth line or not, and you may have to reconsider. So there's nothing inherently to be averse about in terms of the lines. Having said that, I know there are people that will have, you know, their own ideas about profiles. You know, so many people write in and say, oh, 3 5s, they really hurt me, etc., etc. Well, you know, they are their profile, they are, but there's only 12 profiles and we're all unique. So no, it's not about these big generalizations and having an aversion. It's more likely to be a projection from you depending on something that's happened to you in the past. And maybe you've had a lot of fourth lines in the past and they have brought you into things that didn't fit with you, and you know, there were negative consequences. I really don't know. That's for you to know. But in terms of an aversion to a line per se, no, that's not what I've witnessed. All lines are interesting. Everyone's interesting. Okay, thank you for the question. So now I want to begin to move us towards what is the way through what's wrong with us, or what's wrong with them, or whatever it may be. What is the way through? And this next comment from Waking the World begins to take us there. This is what they've shared. Thank you, Richard, for looking into this aspect of tribal circuits. Guess it all boils down to vibration, being in tune with someone on the right wavelength, and the need to spend more time with such people. My last marriage was a bit like that, though there was other stuff too. I was finding my way finally, moving on a different path. We were drifting apart, to coin a cliche. It happens. In fact, it was something Ras said regarding the open spleen that resonated with me and got me on the road to divorce. What are you hanging on to that is not good for you? So yes, regarding the family tribe, just let it go. So let's not blame Ra. He gets enough blame for so many things anyway. But very true, is it not? With an open spleen, what are you hanging on to? And this is the way forward, to see where the not self is primary in us, and to see how it's playing out in our life. And seeing that, yeah, you're holding on to something that isn't good for you, let it go. And you can do that. And you can do that with everything. But you need it to be pointed to, like, that's a thing for you because of the open spleen. So yes, the direction I'm taking us in is basically follow the mechanics and learn the mechanics. Here's our final question from Dina. Thanks, Richard, for responding to the loneliness of the human design divide inquiries. It took me several years to accept this fact. Others don't see its value. It's not on their path. They are just not interested. I have the 1156 and the 4323 channels, which, if I understand correctly, have something to do with having such a strong desire to share what I've learned so others can have a happier life too. It's a predicament. Now, after nearly 7 years of studying human design, I've decided for now it's been for me to learn more deeply about myself and put that effort into deconditioning myself. I am sensing its magnificent rewards as I continue on with it. And yes, Dina, this is exactly the point. There's so much information in human design. It is so fascinating. It is like, let me see if I can validate it in this person and that person, in this situation, in myself in different ways. And yeah, it's quite something. The first 7 years is really quite overwhelming with being able to see things in very different ways to the way that you were brought up. Regarding the 1156 and the 4323, yeah, you're here to speak your ideas and you want to get them heard. The desire to get them heard and share them is with the 1156. The 4323 needs to explain. It's not so much driven by a desire, it's driven by its own certainty of what it knows, that it wants others to really think about and change the way that they are living their life, seeing their life in different ways. And all of this, all of it, is about turning inward and seeing how you can decondition, what the moments come up that you have to go beyond your conditioning in order to accept or in order to open new doors. This is a science for us one at a time, as I said last episode. You know, the tools are here. It's easy to get lost in the magnificence of all the things that you can see, but the main thing is to use the mechanics on yourself, to see for yourself what is really true, to validate it for yourself. Then lots of questions and lots of things leave the life. You know, you're no longer comparing yourself with others for a start, which is a big one, like we started with this episode. It's a big one to let go of that. It's such a relief. The sense of freedom, the sense that there is less resistance because you're not trying to push anymore. You're not trying to follow the mind. You're not operating from not self-centers all the time. So you begin to get distance from it and see where you are and let that go. It's mainly about letting go for you to be able to live your life and see the way that you're here to see, and to enjoy it in the way that we have this potential to enjoy different things according to who we are, different ways, different lifestyles, different environments, different foods, and enjoy different people in different ways, depending on who they are. There is so much, but it's got to really continue with you. And if this knowledge isn't used on you, if you're not looking at the areas of not self, and you're putting it all on the other, there's something wrong. You're missing an opportunity. It's for us to deal with us, and in that sense, get free. All right, well, I hope you all enjoyed that. Thank you for watching this. Please like, share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. And I shall be back again very soon with something completely different. See you then. Bye for now.